Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Godox AD300 Studio Strobe and why I like it so much. Stay tuned. The AD300 is a tiny battery-powered strobe from Godox that very well may be the most versatile light that I've ever used for on-location work. From a size perspective, the AD300 is roughly the size of a large water bottle, so it's extremely easy to pack. As you can see from this image, one roller bag can carry 2 strobes, a couple of cameras, and as many lenses as you might need. Some of you are probably thinking, so what? The AD200 is already extremely portable. And yes, you're right. The AD200 is portable until you need softboxes. The problem with the AD200 is that it requires 2 things. An S2 bracket so that you can connect softboxes to it, and also softboxes with a Bowens mount. Again, neither of these things are a problem until you want to maximize portability. Have a look at these images so that you can compare the differences in size between the Godox mount and the Bowens mount. As you can see from these images, the Godox mount is about half the width of the Bowens mount, which means that when you put it into a light stand bag, it's roughly the same size as an umbrella. That way you can easily pack 2 light stands and 2 softboxes into one small light stand bag. So as we can see, the AD300 is extremely portable, and it can still be used with Bowens mounts whenever you like, either by putting the actual Bowens mount on the flash itself or by using that same S2 bracket to connect your Bowens mount to the AD300. But how does it compare when it comes to power output? The AD200 is actually quite good for power output, so let's take a look at how the AD200 with different flash heads and the AD300 compare, as well as the AD200. Let's have a look. Let's have a quick look at all the flashes and flash heads that we're about to compare. On the top row we have the Godox AD200. On the top left we have the bare bulb version with a standard reflector. The middle we have the Fresnel head, which is very much like a regular speed light. And then on the top right we have the round head, which is used for magnetic gels and grids. Then on the bottom left we have the AD300 Pro, which has the standard reflector on it. In the middle we have the AD14 reflector that replaces the standard reflector when you want to use some of their grids and gels. And then on the bottom right we have the AD200, which allows you to combine 2 bare bulbs and 2 batteries so that you get a 400 watts per second output. Now the first test that we're going to start with here is comparing the center brightness of all of the flashes and the various flash heads that we had mentioned earlier. I want to also point out that there's a lot of dust on all of these images. That's because I was shooting at f/22 for all of these tests, and you can see everything show up from the sensor. Let's try to ignore that. And also you'll notice that there's one image while we're going through here for the standard reflector on the AD300 that is not lined up with the rest of them, and that's because I actually forgot to record everything with that reflector and then had to reset everything up and include it after. So let's move along. So from a center brightness point of view, the first one that we're looking at here is the AD300 with the bare bulb. And that's, I didn't expect this to be very bright because of all of the light blasting all over the place. It's basically a bare bulb, so a lot of the light is spilt off to the sides. I would never use it this way, but it was just for the sake of comparison. So center brightness, next we're looking at the AD200 with the round head. You'll notice that it's brighter in the center, but it's gotten quite a bit darker on the edges because it's focusing the light forward. Then using the AD300 with the included reflector, you have a lot more light now. It's a bit brighter in the middle. Then with the AD14 reflector added to the 300, it's a little bit brighter and a little bit more concentrated. Finally, with the AD200 with the 2 flash heads, it's much brighter. It's a lot brighter all around. And then again with the AD200 bare bulb with the reflector, it's really focusing that light right in the middle, so it's quite bright. And surprisingly, the AD200 with the Fresnel head is the brightest of all of the flashes when it comes to the center. You'll also notice in this case that the profile of this Fresnel head is that it's vertically concentrated in a kind of in a center area as opposed to being round. That's because of the shape of it, and also because I have the flash rotated vertically so that I could fit it properly into this S2 bracket. Now to summarize them all, this is what you'll see, and you may want to pause this if you want to compare all of them in terms of brightness. You can see them all in order here, from the AD200 with the Fresnel head being the brightest down to the AD300 with the bare bulb. The next thing that I wanted to compare using the same images as last time is the overall amount of light coming out of the flash as opposed to how bright it is in the middle. Oftentimes you're photographing something that requires a lot more even light spread out over the whole image, so in this case we're looking at that. Now if you look at the AD200 with the round head, it's not very bright in the center, but it also falls off pretty quickly on the edges. The next one we look at is the AD300 with the bare bulb. It's very evenly bright over the entire image, but it's not super bright, but it's still a lot more light overall than the last one. Next one is the AD200 with the Fresnel head. It's super bright in the middle. You'd actually get a lot more coverage or useful coverage for, say, for a group shot, for example, if you rotated the flash horizontally as opposed to vertically as it is now, but it also has a very quick fall off. The next one is the AD200 with bare bulb with main reflector that comes with the bare bulb. That one still has a pretty strong fall off on the edges, but it's wider than the other ones. Next one is the AD300 with the included reflector. It's not as bright in the middle as the last one, but the spread is quite good. So if you're doing a fill light for a large group shot, this is actually not a bad option. It's actually something I'll probably use. Then the next one is the AD300 with the AD14 reflector. And it's a little bit brighter than the last one, but the fall off is quicker. You're basically getting the same amount of light as the last one, but it's being concentrated a bit more in the middle. And then finally, the brightest of them all is the BG2. It's extremely bright over a wide area, which is obvious that it's going to do that since you're using a more powerful flash, or double flash in this case. Now to summarize those, here's another list like we did last time. You can see that the AD-B2 is the brightest, down to the AD200 round head with the least amount of light coming out of the flash itself. And I'm going to compare everything combined as one of the last things that I talk about. Finally, in our last test, we're comparing the amount of output when using just a small 24-inch silver-lined softbox. The lowest one being, or the lowest output being from the AD200 with the round head, followed by the AD200 with the bare flash or bare bulb. It's also not a huge difference in amount of light. Then we have the B300 with just the bare flash. And you have to make sure actually that when you're using this that you push it far enough out so that all of the light gets into the softbox. So that's brighter than the AD200 bare. Then the B300 with the standard reflector, which we're actually able to fit in the softbox because we're using an S2 bracket. It's actually almost the identical amount of output as using the bare one, if you see when I go back and forth. The next one, which is the most surprising of all of them, is that when you use the AD200 with the Fresnel head, you get a slightly brighter output because of all of that light being blasted directly forward. And strangely enough, it's also a little bit more yellow than the other flashes, but that doesn't really matter in this case. But you'll notice it's a slight increase in the output, not huge. If you go back and forth between this and the 300, they're very, very similar. But then, of course, the AD-B2 has a much higher output, and again, that's because of the increased wattage between them. It is surprising that there isn't a huge difference between the AD200 and the AD300, but they all have different uses depending on what you're doing with them. Let's take a look at how these all compare. So what did we discover from doing all of these tests? Well, by looking at all the summary results from each test side by side, I can see that the AD200 is actually a much better light for a lot of situations than a lot of people think. It'll get you by whenever you need it. Also, when the AD-B2 is used, it's your best solution for really bright scenarios, like when you need a lot of light to counteract the sun. You don't want to have the sun in the shot necessarily, but when there is sunny edges on a person, you can get a ton of fill light even with a large modifier in front of it and balance everything out. That leads me to the AD300, which I personally like the most out of all of these. One, because it's a single light. Two, because it puts out a lot of volume and the fall off from it is great, even though when you concentrate the light more in the center, you can still get a good amount of light in the middle. Not as much as the AD200 because there's no Fresnel head equivalent with it, but you still get lots and as much as you need. Now the last thing that I've highlighted in blue here is the AD200 with the round head. The round head, I don't see a lot of discussion about it, but it's the one I actually use the most because it has a really nice fall off on the edge when you're using it. bare and outside in the sun. What I didn't realize is just how much less power it has compared to some of the other options. So it's probably something I'm not going to use as much in the sun, but it's big plus that it has that I haven't mentioned at any other time here is that there are times when you actually want low power from your flash because you're trying to balance the light with ambient or low ambient light around you, say in the evening or inside, and you want to have a wide open aperture. So this is something I do actually quite a bit because I'm not out in the sun all that often. So having the round head option for a lower output is something that's essential for me just as much as having bright light when I need it is. So there you have it. The AD300 may not be the brightest light out there, but it certainly checks all of the right boxes for me in terms of portability, power level even, and also in flexibility when it comes to using different softboxes. If you're looking for something that has more power, you're probably best off to go up to the AD600, which is quite a bit more powerful than the 300. For me personally, it's much too big for 95% of my work. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button below for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.